it to you. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, shows up on Sunday. It's St. Patrick's Day, but full disclosure, it's Saturday morning right now. But I'm preparing. I'm getting ahead of myself. Meet me down in the kitchen. Come on, let's do it. Come on, let's do it. I think for something like 2 shows in a row, I was going on about that lentil soup. Remember we made the turkey back stock a couple episodes ago? I made the lentil soup. It was phenomenal. It's all gone. I made a huge pot. I was bringing it for lunch, eating it for dinner. It didn't work out to be a show because of I think the night I made it on, I just didn't want to set the tripod up and all of that. So I had another thing in mind for today's show, which is going to have to wait because now it's St. Patrick's Day today when you're watching the show. It's actually Saturday while I shoot. My thing about St. Patrick's Day, it's one of the things I wait for every year. I love that corned beef and cabbage dinner with Irish soda bread. I eat it once a year, either on or right around St. Patrick's Day. There's any number of places that serve a good lunch or dinner version. Hurley Mountain Inn is good. The delis always have specials. So I was about to do that, and then I was shopping at Adam's Wednesday night to get all the ingredients for what I planned to do today. And they had, obviously they're selling for the season, so they had all packaged corned beefs out. And usually I've looked at those in the past, and it's like I'm not going to buy like a 3-pound brisket corned beef for me. But they had them packaged up, and I saw some nice small packaged ones. So the brain started turning, and instead of shopping for what I had, I said, why spend $15 for a single serving at a deli or a takeout restaurant when I can make it at home? It's going to be better. And, well, come on, over to the board. Let's talk about this. I'm doing corned beef today. I'm pumped. Corned beef and cabbage for St. Pat's. Who's completely pumped? Me. All right, here's that little corned beef brisket. I was so psyched to see these. This was about 1.25 pounds, roughly, like 1.23. And it was $4.69, something like that, a pound. So this cost me $5 and change. 1.25 pounds, I'll get at least 3 meals out of this. Maybe even a little sandwich. We'll see. On sourdough with mustard. A little of that boiled cabbage. Of course, corned beef and cabbage. Oh, and by the way, they give you a nice little pickling spice pack, which we're going to throw in. But we're also going to use some fresh thyme, and I'll use some of my own bay leaf. Carrot, red potatoes, onions. Simple, simple, simple. We're going to cover the corned beef with water, but I'm also going to add that can of Forces, and trust me, I get the irony. It's an Australian beer. That should be a Harp lager. But at the store I was at, there was no Harp, and I wasn't running across down to Beer Universe. We're going to go in the Dutch. Now, you can do this in the crock pot. I considered it, but it's a beautiful Saturday out there. I am going to put this on the stove top. You could also, some people sear the brisket and then put this whole thing in the oven. I'm going total stove top, just gonna simmer. I'm gonna braise this beauty, okay? And we're not gonna sear it. We're just gonna put it in here, right? Let's get our pickling spice, which is like black peppercorn, coriander seed. What else did I have in here? Maybe some allspice. I think they have bay leaf, but we're adding our own. I read it, I don't remember what all's in here. The main thing are the peppercorns and the coriander. Yep, I can see little bits of bay leaf in there crushed up. It smells good. So let's put our pickling spice in. The fresh thyme, let's crush, get those oils out. That's my idea, because thyme makes everything better. And I see plenty of little crushed up bits of bay leaf in there, but I'm going to add, time for new bay leaf anyway, mine are bits as well. Let's add a couple of decent sized pieces, okay? Foster's, and it's early in the morning, which is good, because I'm not tempted to drink any of this. I have a couple of Guinness cans in the fridge to enjoy with the meal. right, this is a full braise, so I'm gonna cover with water so that our brisket is completely submerged. Let's bring this over to the stove. Come on, let's do it. Come on, let's do it. On she goes, nice high heat. We'll bring that to the boil, then we'll turn her down and cover her. That's gonna simmer just the brisket and the spices for 2 hours before we start adding veg. That gives me time to prep the veg off camera. But before we do that, we need to go back to the board. There's something very important we need to discuss. Okay, very important for me with this meal, the Irish soda bread. Gotta have that soda bread. All-purpose flour. Now, here's the thing. If you go on the King Arthur website for the Irish soda bread recipe, which is not the one I'm using today, by the way, but I like to scour. I've never made this before, so let's do one of these, folks. They talk about Irish flour, and they'll tell you all about why you need the Irish flour. It's got a lower gluten content. It's got some heavier, like some of the bran kernels on it. So, but most of the recipes, if you hunt around, talk about all-purpose. I didn't want to use my bread flour. I almost bought cake flour, but I don't want to play because I've never done it before. The idea is that this soda bread is not a stretchy bread dough like a chapati. You're not looking to really build gluten strands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat. The recipe calls for 500 grams of all-purpose. I'm sorry, 531 grams. I'm going to go 500. I'm going to put 31 of my whole wheat flour just to, I'll say, bran it up a little. Butter, this is cold butter, very important, like the pastry type of thing. We're going to put the cold butter in. You can use white sugar. I have some brown sugar on hand. I'm going with that. Beautiful big egg from the girlies. Look at the color on that thing. Buttermilk, essential. Salt. Raisins, optional. I love them. Some people use dried cranberries. I like the straight up raisins. That's about a cup, a little shy of a cup. Steal a couple. Baking soda. This is our leavener. No yeast in this dough. Okay? This bread, if done properly, is just short of a scone. It's got that crumbly, almost cakey texture. I absolutely love it, and I can't think of doing this meal with anything else. So let's get started. Take our egg, and into that, 420 ml of buttermilk. This container is 473. We want 420. There we go. Let's whisk that together. Egg and buttermilk. The buttermilk is essential to this. Okay, let's set that aside. Get our bowl over here. We're going to go 500 on your AP. Bowl's a little big, but I can just about make out the numbers. 426. 5. Okay, 512. So let's now come up to 531 with a little bit of whole wheat. This is basically an experiment. But I figured just a touch to get that granular effect. There we go, 531. Okay, in we go. Sugar. Teaspoon of salt. The old Justin Wilson bit, remember that? You don't believe that's a teaspoon? I'll show you that's a teaspoon. Baking soda. Let's get those mixed together. And in we go with the cold butter. Now this is kind of flour heavy, this recipe. But the idea is to cut this butter in, and I'm just going to use my fingers, get it coated, and just start pressing it. And you know the deal. You want to make like pea-sized little bits, but you want that flour to start getting crumbly. This is why you want the butter cold when you start. You don't want to make a mush out of this. All right, this is going to take a few minutes. I'll get this prepped up. We've got all our butter crumbled up nicely. Let's take our raisins, a cup of raisins, scatter those, break up the ones that are sticking together, and let's put in our wet. Butter's nicely incorporated, nice little pea-sized chunks, flour all through them. So let's go in with this, the buttermilk and egg, right? Get our handy Danish whisk out and start getting that flour hydrated. Oh, am I psyched for this. I've got the oven coming up to 400. It's almost there, 303 right now. Should be perfect timing. And the corned beef came to a boil quite a while back. I turned it way down, lowest simmer possible, and it smells phenomenal in this kitchen right now. Let's take a little flour, put it out on our board, flour the hands, and let's get this dough out. It's wet, it's sticky. Now this is, as I mentioned, this is not a kneaded rising yeast bread, okay? We just want about a 30-second knead here to kind of bring it together. Get some more flour in there, which is fine because it's very wet. So it's going to be moist and cakey, like I was saying, like a scone. So let's give it a small knead, 30 seconds or so. Oh, yeah. So, as I said, the corned beef is going to be ready with its braise about noon. And then we're going to add the potatoes and give it another 20 minutes. Then we're going to add the cabbage. So I'd say this meal is going to be done in the 2 p.m. range, which is perfect. Okay, here we go. Cast iron. Oven's at just about 350. Let's get a little flour in there. This is well seasoned, but let's put a little flour on the bottom. Get my scraper here. I suppose I could have put a piece of parchment, but this cast iron is well seasoned, so I'm not worried about it. In she goes. Let's give her a little bit of height. Remember, no yeast. Our baking soda is the rising medium. Get a little flour on my hands here. Getting all sticky. There we go. Okay, let me rinse up my hands, and then the oven is just about there. We'll pop her in. Irish soda bread. Let's give this a little X score, about a ½ inch deep. You want to let a little bit of steam come out, right? With any bread, basically. Well, I guess the sandwich bread I don't really score. But your sourdough loaves, you want to allow an escape hatch. Okay, 375. Let me reposition this camera and the oven should be ready to go. 400, bang, let's go. In she goes. We got a nice simmer going on back here. Just the corned beef and spices right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this I know, I started at 10 on the dot. So, I mean this. So that's going till noon before we add the potatoes, etc. But for the bread, I'm gonna set my phone timer for 45. Get my sorry butt outside because it's a real yard working kind of Saturday out there. I've got 45 minutes. I'm digging over the garden, digging that winter rye in, and then when I come in for the bread, we'll have a look, and at that point there'll still be, more than an hour or close to an hour left on the brisket. So at that point, I'll prep up my veg. You don't need to see that. Boring. But I'm heading outside. See you in a few. Okay, it's just about noon. 10 of. Time to put our potatoes in. But in the meantime, soda bread. This is just out of the oven. 10 minutes. I let it rest. Still warm. We must have a quality control check to see if it's going to be viable to serve. Looks viable. A little butter on a warm piece. I never even made it to the gardens, but it doesn't mean I haven't been productive. Got a bunch of seeds planted. Acapulco Gold. And prepped up all the veg, so we'll be over at the stove momentarily. In the meantime, oh, that's what I'm talking about. Let's go check in on the corned beef. Come on, let's do it. Come on, let's do it. Okay, I am super hyped now after tasting that soda bread. This is what I live for. There'll be no St. Patty's Day parade for me. The only parade I'm doing is going out to that yard. All right, here's the red potatoes. I scrubbed them nicely. I saw recipes online. One lady was roasting them. She's like, why you have gray boiled potatoes? Because that's the dish, lady. I mean, I love roasted potatoes, particularly these. She does them and puts them on the side. Nope, I'm boiling them with the cabbage, with the onion, with the carrot. And by the way, every time I do one of these, I learn, because I do a lot of homework. There's all sorts of information to find online. I'm giving guitar lessons to a friend of mine right now. In they go. And I'm learning as much as I'm teaching. So that's the thing with this. So what I learned is you don't put a lot of carrot. The carrot is not really for serving. It's to pull some bitterness from the cabbage. So this is all the carrot I'm going to put in. It was those two, but I didn't even use the whole two. And then we've got our onion. This is going to come back to the boil and then simmer for 10 minutes. So while that's happening, flip my corned beef. I turned it over once. While that's coming to the boil, let's prep the cabbage. Take a little bit of this root off, but I want to leave it because you don't want your cabbage falling apart. So, we'll go through half, right? And now we'll do wedges. I don't even think I need the whole thing. What I do is I hang these up in the bird run. Chickens go nuts over them. I have a little old fondue fork hanging from a string in there. And I hang those before I leave for work in the morning. So let's do these in thirds like this. Like I said, you want to leave the root on so it doesn't fall apart. This is not something I eat more than once a year, but when I do, I love it. And I think it might be the first time I've made my own. Let's see, how big is that corned beef? I think that's enough cabbage. I'll do one more wedge off this side. And the girls will get the rest. Okay, 10 minutes for the potatoes. Okay, potatoes are nice and soft. Let's put the cabbage in. Carrots. Onion. And let's top up our water so that everything's covered. raise this heat up, bring it back to a boil. And that's the dish. When that cabbage is tender, we're ready to eat. Okay, we're at the boil. Let's turn the heat down, put a cover on. I'd say 15-20 minutes. When that cabbage is nice and soft, tender, we'll be ready to plate. In the meantime, okay, while we're waiting for the simmer, I saw this on a, well, this is the girl who does the roasted potatoes. By the way, I'm going to link the recipes I used. I'll link the down in the description box. I'll put the actual corned beef and cabbage recipe I used, the soda bread, and this recipe. I'll put the links because, like I said, when I do something that I'm not overly familiar with, I've never really made this before, I do a ton of homework. Sometimes I improv. Sometimes I just use the one recipe that I find that looks good, easy to follow, looks like it's going to turn out good, and those people absolutely deserve the credit. So I will link the recipes in the description box. And I always, with my corned beef and cabbage, was a big spicy mustard fan, Dijon, whatever, brown mustard. But she had this sour cream horseradish sauce. Now I don't have sour cream, but I do have this plain yogurt, which actually is just as good in my opinion, sometimes preferable. So I'm going to go with about a quarter cup of the yogurt, and then I just whipped up a minute ago while the camera was off, and we've done this on another episode. Might have done it twice, so I didn't feel any need to repeat it. My homemade mayo with the extra light olive oil. I love this stuff. Sorry Hellmann's, sorry Duke's, doesn't compare. This is incredible. You can feel a little bit better about using the olive oil instead of some, seedy vegetable oil. I mean seedy in both ways. So sour cream, in our case, yogurt, and then some prepared horseradish. Squeeze a little bit of lemon in there. There's a pit, I don't want that going in. Salt and pepper. And then I just ran out. These are those beautiful, just coming up, they're not even that tall. The spring chives, just coming awake. Oh, that is going to be beautiful on our corned beef. All right, just waiting for that cabbage to get tender. Okay, it is go time. All right, here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to start by fetching out my cabbage wedges. Oh, they're nice and tender. Beautiful. Some leaves fell off, but that's fine. We'll get those at the end after I drain. And okay, that ought to do it. There's just going to be leaves floating. Now, let's get the potatoes out. They're very well done. Again, like I said, that lady was touting the roasted. I don't mind these well done. We're going to butter them. Put a little parsley in there. A few of the stray cabbage leaves fall in with them. Very nice. Carrot. Now, let's get the brisket out. The main event. Potato. Okay, whatever's left will come out at the drain. Let's get the brisket. off camera over here. Going a little closer. And what we're going to do with these potatoes first is a little bit of butter. Butter's nice and soft. I've been leaving this thing, since it has a cover, out on the counter. I have my cold butter in the fridge. My dad used to do that with his wife, and it freaked me out because they lived in Miami. They never put their butter away. It stayed in a cupboard, open on a dish. Kind of freaked me out. But this thing is pretty cool because it's covered, so you have your soft butter whenever you want it. Potatoes will just melt that. Let's throw in our chopped parsley. I did that off camera. Potatoes are done. Let's plate this up. Now, I'm only going to do a small serving for myself because I have a friend and neighbor coming down to help me with a chore in the yard that requires 2 people, a chain, and a vehicle. So I told him if he wants to come down, there's corned beef and cabbage. Okay, normally you'd get slabs, which means we're well cooked. I am not complaining. Got a little piece of my soda bread here. Corned beef. Let's get a little cabbage. Some potato. I'll get 1 piece of carrot. And let's not forget our horseradish. Oh, I just realized that wasn't in frame, but that's okay. Let's bring it over to the board. Corned beef and cabbage. St. Patty's Day. Now, what's mandatory for me with this, as I said, is the soda bread, but also a nice Guinness stout, which I have in the fridge. But I'm not drinking that right now because I've got yard work to do. Oh, the cabbage is perfect. Chainsaw, weed whacker, etc. So the Guinness can wait. Oh man. This is out of control, you guys. Out of control. And at the risk of repeating myself, how much corned beef is there? Well, it does shrink down, but there's a couple more generous servings. 3/4 of a loaf of soda bread, more than that. I barely dented it. Potatoes, plenty of cabbage. Total cost of this meal, groceries, I'm going to say, we saw the meat, $5 and change. I'm going to say the whole meal was between $10 and $15. And that's what a skimpy serving would cost you at the deli or a restaurant. Oh. We'll see you for the next episode. Come on, let's do it.